Long before they were the protectors of peace and justice across the galaxy, the Jedi were humble monks, embarking on a quest to understand the deeper mysteries of the Force. For tens of thousands of years, the Jedi Knights served as the steadfast guardians of the Republic, answering the call to protect the innocent and right wrongs whenever the need arose. But their journey began long before their role as warriors, in an age where trials, discoveries, and wars would define their fate. The story begins with the arrival of mysterious pyramid-shaped starships, the Tho Yor, which brought species from across the galaxy to the sacred world of Tython. Here, they formed the Jedi Order, a group seeking balance between the light and dark aspects of the Force. Through centuries of struggle, wars, and internal conflict, the Jedi found themselves torn between their philosophy of balance and the growing power of the light. Their trials culminated in their eventual transformation into the Jedi Order, embracing the light fully and pledging themselves to the Republic. This marked the true beginning of the Jedi's legendary role in galactic history, forever shaping the galaxy's fate. For millennia, they lay dormant. The strange vessels of unknown origin, forged from materials no one could name and etched with markings no species could decipher. Their silent presence radiated with power, calling out to all who gazed upon them. On a frozen world, monks of an ancient order climbed snowy peaks each year to meditate before the vessel resting in their mountain. They sensed it was not of their world, yet bound to the energy that shaped all things. One day, the silence broke. A voice resonated not in ears, but through the very essence of existence, offering an invitation. The vessel opened, accepting all who entered, and rose from the mountains to depart. Across the stars, others awakened as well, their doors opening to mystics and seekers on distant worlds, each drawn by the same unanswered call, each destined to gather where the true journey would begin. In a land of breathtaking diversity, jungles, volcanoes, deserts, and plains titans embarked on a mission they didn't fully understand: to master the Force. Uncertain about their origins, they set aside questions of the past and future, choosing to focus only on the present, where balance reigned supreme. But true mastery of the Force wasn't just about meditation, it was about letting the Force flow through them, guiding their every move. Over the next millennium, they built a thriving civilization filled with temples, cities, and centers of knowledge, all anchored around 9 mysterious ships that had landed on their world. Their world, however, was no simple place. 2 moons hung in the sky, one light, one dark, teaching the Titans about the duality of the Force. Yet, the planet's overwhelming power meant that maintaining balance was a constant challenge. Violent storms, earthquakes, and dangerous predators were all part of the daily struggle, forcing the Titans to hone their combat skills while connecting with the creatures around them. In their pursuit of perfect balance, they formed a society, the G named after 2 words, meaning mystic and center. To them, balance wasn't just a philosophy. It was the key to peace and survival. The world they found was fierce and untamed, with jungles, volcanoes, deserts, and endless plains rising into vast plateaus and stone formations that seemed carved by eternity itself. Here they understood their purpose: to study the Force and master its flow. Though they did not know why they had been brought, none questioned it, choosing instead to live in the present where balance was key. They practiced moving meditation, allowing the Force to surge through them until it shaped their every motion. Over centuries, they built temples, cities, and sanctuaries of knowledge and healing, all centered around the vessels that had delivered them. 2 moons circled above, one radiant and one shadowed, teaching them that light and dark existed only in reflection of each other. Yet the planet itself demanded balance, for when harmony was broken, storms and quakes would rage. Beasts, both deadly and majestic, tested their resolve, pushing them to learn combat and communion with all living things. From this struggle, they forged an identity, calling themselves Jedi, mystics of the center, bound by the belief that only through balance could peace endure. Those born with the gift to touch the Force were brought back to the world of storms and mountains, where they journeyed from temple to temple in pursuit of knowledge and balance. Yet not all who arrived on the great vessels, nor every child born among them, carried that gift. For those without it, survival was harsh, for even the Guardians could not shield them from the wrath of the planet. When a mighty city was destroyed in a single violent upheaval, It became clear the world was too dangerous for the unblessed. Thus began a sorrowful second migration. Families were divided, and grief filled the air, yet necessity demanded it. The non-sensitive departed, spreading across the system to carve out new lives. They settled first on the twin worlds of light and shadow before venturing further, reaching the many planets that circled their star. Among them were fiery spheres locked in endless storms, useful only for their ores, mined by those brave enough to endure their crushing heat. Another world grew into an industrial heart, scarred by its own creations until its very air turned toxic. From these beginnings, the wider system took shape, and the Jedi remained as stewards, seeking balance while their kin built lives beyond the peril of their ancient home. Beneath domes filled with filtered air, the next world, known as K, is a dry, desolate place, scarred by dormant volcanoes. The atmosphere is scalding, and the surface parched life here doesn't stand a chance unless it's protected. The only things that thrive are bizarre blue crystals and towering glass spires. But beneath the surface lies a sprawling underground world, a labyrinth of caverns and hidden lakes where life is flourishing. Moisture is trapped, causing rain to fall within the depths, bringing alien plants and lush jungles to life. Tython, the fifth planet from Tyos, has its own counterpart in Calamar, a bustling cosmopolitan world teeming with people. If Tyos is a city, Calamar is its heart, filled with soaring spires of white metal and cities perched on green hillsides with breathtaking mountain views. It's also the business and religious center of the sector, home to a vibrant culture and a dense population. Then there's Shikaka, an aquatic planet ruled by the infamous Nine Houses feudal gangster clans under a singular, powerful overlord who watches over them all. Gora, a temperate, green planet, is a realm of vast forests and swamps. The locals live in floating cities to protect the wilderness, though illegal settlers, like Wookiees, have made their mark in the forest an untouched challenge for now. Finally, we encounter the planets of Obri and Mar, their stories waiting to unfold. In a distant galaxy, two gas giants boast numerous moons, some of which are home to settlers and gas mining facilities. Among these is Fury's Gate, a desolate world with only a scientific outpost that observes the mysteries of the deep core from its station, Fury. While the settlers on these moons had largely forgotten their Jedi origins, their world remained a place where balance between light and dark was fiercely upheld. The Jedi Order once thrived here, a group devoted to maintaining that very balance. The ancient Jedi Code echoed their quest. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no fear, there is power. Their philosophy recognized that light and darkness were forever intertwined, that no one could escape either. The Jedi's disciplined, structured life at their temple stood as a beacon of this balance, where they sought harmony between the forces of Ashla and Bogan. But their path was not without conflict. Over centuries, as wars raged and corruption seeped through their ranks, they began to lose sight of their original purpose, veering toward the light as their true identity emerged. The story of the Jedi, rooted in ancient trials, sacrifices, and rebirths, would forever shape their role in the galaxy, culminating in their eventual embrace of the Republic. They had become the guardians of peace, warriors bound by their code to uphold the delicate balance that defined their destiny. In the ancient times of Tython, the Jedi Order rose, seeking to master the delicate balance between the light and dark sides of the Force. The light brought clarity, peace, and life, yet could leave one cold and indecisive if overemphasized, while the dark fueled passion, anger, and action, but when unchecked, could breed hatred and prevent compassion. The Jedi believed that embracing both forces was essential to understanding the whole of the Force. They trained within 9 temples, each devoted to a different discipline, and their purpose was to maintain balance in the galaxy. Initially, they were scholars and artists, but as danger loomed, they became protectors, ready to defend the innocent. They believed mercy should always be offered, but if necessary, destruction was a means to restore balance. As their journey continued, they faced internal strife, wars, and the destructive invasion of the Infinite Empire. These struggles ultimately transformed them, pushing them away from their balanced philosophy and towards the path of the Jedi, who would later join the Galactic Republic as guardians of peace. The story of the Jedi is one of balance, sacrifice, and evolution, a journey from ancient wisdom to the foundations of the Jedi Order, marking the dawn of their legendary role in galactic history. The journey begins with the Jedi Order, formed through the mysterious arrival of the Tho Yor starships, bringing species from across the galaxy to Tython. Here, they embarked on their path of balance, studying the Force through 9 sacred temples, each with its own unique focus. The Temple of Knowledge, perched over a Force nexus, was where the Jedi gathered to make important decisions and establish the first Great Library. The Temple of the Arts, nestled in the tranquil Green Plains, honored the Force's manifestation in creativity, ranging from music and theater to calligraphy and sculpting. Then there was the Temple of Science, where the Jedi delved into the mysteries of Force alchemy, seeking theoretical knowledge with far-reaching consequences. As the Order grew, they faced immense trials, from internal conflict and wars to the catastrophic invasion of the Infinite Empire. These struggles would push them from a philosophy centered on balance between light and dark to fully embracing the light, eventually evolving into the Jedi Order we recognize today. Their journey, filled with mistakes, betrayals, and moments of greatness, would forge the path to becoming the galaxy's guardians of peace and knowledge. In a land defined by its dangerous chasms, there exists a mysterious gorge so deep that its bottom has never been found. Force-sensitive individuals who venture into it experience disorienting interference. With the stronger one's connection to the Force, the worse the disturbance becomes. This chasm symbolizes the unsolvable mysteries of the Force, causing many Jedi scientists to lose their sanity in their quest for its dark secrets. This strange and treacherous location led to the construction of the Temple of Science, built directly above it. There are also other sacred places like the Temple of Healing, nestled in the deep oceans, where Jedi focus on healing with and without the Force, ensuring that unnecessary death never befalls their people. Then there's the Temple of the Forge, positioned over an active volcano, utilizing its magma to power the structure while also allowing the forging of swords and other weapons imbued with the Force. Another temple, the one at the heart of the Silent Desert, known for honing mental and sensory skills, serves as the perfect environment for Jedi to sharpen their minds. Each of these temples plays a crucial role in the Jedi's quest for balance, though their practices and environments are fraught with peril and intrigue. The Silent Desert earned its name because all sound vanishes there, absorbed by an unexplained element in the sand that mutes sound waves for miles, creating the perfect, serene environment for training. Located in the cold, snowy mountains, Stav served as the Temple of Martial Arts, where Jedi honed their combat skills, learning to fight with their hands and swords while mastering the Force within their bodies to defend the weak. This was where they became the legendary warriors known throughout the galaxy. But in the early days, before the established 7 forms of lightsaber combat, dueling was very different. Though little is known about their sword training, the Jedi performed a rigorous style called Alaka, which some claimed was designed to keep them warm in the mountains cold. Alaka meditations were demanding, combining intense physical movements with Force skills in repetitive, dizzying exercises, pushing practitioners to their limits. The purpose of Alaka was to serve as a moving meditation, attuning both body and mind to the Force's strength. At the Jedi Academy, young initiates were trained before their formal instruction under Jedi Masters. These young students, known as Padawans, have been a part of Jedi history ever since. At the Karash Temple, high atop the towering pinnacle of Tython, the balance between the light and dark sides was deeply explored in introspective contemplation. The ancient Jedi Order once sought the balance between light and dark, taught through the dual forces of Ashla and Bogan. Their teachings were so strict that any member drifting too far into either side would be exiled to one of the moons of Bogan, forced to meditate under the opposite force they had fallen from. Only after re-evaluation by the Jedi Masters, once balance was restored, could they return to Tython. The training process began with initiates, who were raised in the ways of the Force. As they matured, they were selected by a master to be trained as Padawans, either within the sacred grounds of Tython or beyond. After completing their training, they were promoted to journeys, where they undertook a pilgrimage across Tython's 9 temples, an intense journey of self-discovery and introspection. This period of solitude and learning was essential, not just for knowledge, but for forging one's own path within the Force. It was here, during this journey that many Jedi chose the discipline they would devote themselves to for life. The trials were not only physical, but deeply spiritual, and each step brought them closer to understanding their place within the vast cosmic balance. After completing a long and arduous journey, they were granted the prestigious rank of Jedi Ranger. This title, akin to the revered Jedi Nan, came with considerable privilege, responsibility, and the duty to protect and maintain peace. Jedi Rangers were deployed across the Tho Yor system, answering the Council's calls or assisting planets in need, whether by request or due to the will of the Force. Their constant work, whether it was through diplomacy, ending conflicts, hunting fugitives, or aiding struggling civilizations, meant many Rangers rarely returned to their home world. Some remained on the move, while others made homes on various planets or moons within the system. Yet, when a Ranger displayed enough wisdom, experience, and understanding of the Force, they would ascend to the rank of Jedi Master. It was at this stage that many Masters chose to reside in one of the sacred temples, taking on the task of guiding the next generation. The path of the Jedi required each follower to eventually craft their weapon, a vital step on their journey. The process involved visiting the Verdep Forge to partake in a sacred ceremony where their blade would be forged. Originally, the Jedi used Durasteel, but over time, an alloy known as Mad Dog Steel, created by the headmaster of the forge, proved so durable it was thought to be unbreakable. The forging process involved hammering the alloy into a blade, shaping it through both craftsmanship and the Force itself. The blade was forged by channeling the Force, altering the metal's molecular structure to create a refined lattice that hardened the blade and sharpened its edge without the need for grinding. Once the blade was formed, the user would place a crystal into the hilt. Although the Jedi had not yet discovered the living nature of these crystals, they understood their power and used them in their blades. The process involved deep meditation, with the wielder pouring the Force into both the blade and the crystal until they merged as one. When completed, the blade would glow with a misty energy, signifying that it had been permanently infused with the Force. Crafting these swords was an incredibly personal and powerful process, producing blades sharp enough to cut through almost anything. Such weapons demanded a steady hand and mastery of the Force. The Jedi didn't stop at creating swords. They also experimented with alchemy, genetically manipulating creatures to serve the Force. These experiments, though considered a violation of life by future Jedi, were seen as part of the Jedi's early understanding of the Force. They created rancors, animals genetically altered to serve their needs. Despite these actions, their use of alchemy remained pure compared to the dark methods of the Sith, though much of their knowledge has been lost to time. In a world where swords and sorcery coexist with advanced technology, the G live with a deep connection to the Force. They have access to devices like communicators, holograms, and specialized ships. The G's air and spacecraft come in 4 distinct types. The Cloud Chaser, a lighter-than-air ship, is perfect for long travels across the land, with a barrel-shaped body, insect-like wings, and fins. The Patan Glider, a short-range atmospheric fighter, boasts wings resembling pterodactyls. Once promoted to a Ranger, a G can choose between 2 interstellar ships: the Hunter-class starfighter, designed for combat with impressive speed and maneuverability, and the Peacemaker-class cruiser, which excels in long journeys, diplomacy, and defense. A Ranger like Lanor Brock preferred the Peacemaker for its spaciousness and comfort on extended trips. Marriage within G society was once common, but those who married were cautioned not to let attachment lead to jealousy or conflict, as the G's focus remained on their connection to the Force. The Jedi Order had maintained peace for nearly 10,000 years in the Tython system, but in 285 BBY, the first large-scale conflict erupted. Queen Hadia of Shikwa sought to consolidate power, subjugating the aristocracy of her planet and eventually setting her sights on the entire Tython system, including the Jedi Dia. She portrayed the Jedi as oppressors and used her charisma to turn the masses against them. Her threats to peace led the Jedi to intervene, but Hadia's pride and ambition knew no bounds. What started as small skirmishes quickly escalated into the Despot War, as Hadia launched a full-scale assault on Tython. The Jedi were caught off guard at first, but they mounted a fierce defense. The war raged for months, with brutal battles and both sides suffering heavy losses. The conflict would forever mark the Jedi's first major war, shaping their path toward greater conflict and the eventual rise of the Jedi Order. When the Jedi learned that the 3 domes surrounding Greenwood Station were supplying weapons to a rebellious leader, they attempted to negotiate for peace. But when diplomacy failed, the Jedi took a drastic step. They bombed the cities. Despite warning the inhabitants, thousands perished in the attack. Though the damage was repaired quickly, this event fueled hatred for the Jedi, particularly from the people of Nox. This was a time when the Jedi were still learning the complexities of proper negotiation, having only dealt with smaller disputes. The war revealed the Jedi's vulnerabilities, with the Order resorting to questionable tactics, including the creation of the Torrenta. These genetically engineered beasts, originally designed to detect explosives, grew uncontrollable and craved the flesh of Force-sensitive beings. Created by Jedi scientists, these monsters were sent to the moon of Bogan, and their legacy would lead to the infamous Torrent attacks. Meanwhile, 2 Jedi Masters, Talet and Rajavari, became war heroes. Rajavari, in particular, earned the nickname The General after winning many battles during the invasion. In a turbulent time, when assassinations were forbidden among the Jedi, the arrival of a despotic queen threw everything into chaos. As she attacked, the Jedi's hesitation faded, and Dean Locke struck her down. His victory led him to battle through the war-torn camp, where the queen's death ignited infighting among the enemy generals. The Jedi emerged victorious, but at a terrible cost. Around 100,000 Jedi perished, with thousands more injured. Despite their success, the war revealed their mistakes and they dismantled their warships to restore balance. Yet, the assassination campaigns continued across the galaxy, fueled by vengeance for the destruction of the planet Nox. Public opinion shifted, and the Jedi were now seen as the war's villains, sparking resentment across the system. Master Rajavari, deeply disturbed by the aftermath, withdrew into exile, seeking peace and solitude. Dean Locke was promoted to Jedi Master, but his pride would soon lead him to new challenges as he and Hawk Rio, intoxicated by their victory, ventured deep into the unknown chasm years later. After the Queen's devastating attack, Dean Locke, despite the Jedi's rule against assassinations, made a critical decision to end her life. This action marked the turning point in the war, with the death of the Queen causing chaos among the invading forces. As the generals turned on each other, the Jedi seized the opportunity, emerging victorious. However, the price of victory was high, with around 100,000 Jedi lives lost and thousands more injured. The Jedi dismantled their warships and sought to restore balance, installing a weaker leader to prevent another uprising. Yet, in retaliation for the bombing of civilian cities, the Greenwood Stations ordered assassinations of a Jedi for every 100 civilians killed. The war's aftermath saw a shift in public opinion, and the Jedi were now seen by many as the villains. This growing resentment led Master Rajavari, disturbed by the war's impact, to go into exile. Dean Locke, rising to the rank of Jedi Master, along with Hawk Rio, driven by pride, embarked on a reckless journey into the depths of a dark chasm, seeking to test their limits after their grand victory. 2 Jedi, undeterred by the warnings of their order, ventured deep into the chasm of the Tython world, determined to uncover its mysteries. As they descended, the Force seemed to twist their senses, and they were overwhelmed by terrifying visions of an army of dark warriors wielding blades of fire. Among these visions, one stood out. Dean Locke saw himself leading an army against invaders, wielding a blade of fire. He also glimpsed a gateway to thousands of worlds, a new galaxy. This vision, however, drove him mad, pushing him to embrace the dark side. Rio, however, managed to resist the visions and pulled Dean back from the brink of insanity. When the Jedi Council questioned Dean about his visions, they dismissed his warnings of an impending war, unwilling to face another conflict after the devastating Despot Wars. But Dean was resolute, declaring that the only way to prevent the coming destruction was by embracing the dark side. In a desperate act, he developed a new technique, Mind Twist, using the fears of others to manipulate them. As a result, both Dean Locke and Rio were exiled to the moon of Bogan, where they were ordered to meditate and regain their balance. Yet, their journey was far from over, as the shadows of war and corruption loomed large. Dean Locke, haunted by visions of war, struggles to maintain his sanity after the Council dismisses his warnings. Unable to accept their decision, he convinces himself that what he saw was either a lie or a trick, although his obsession grows. Meanwhile, Rio, trying to help, watches helplessly as Dean spirals deeper into the dark side. After a period of inner conflict, Rio is allowed to return to Tython, but Dean remains on the moon, consumed by his vision for 7 more years. A new chapter begins as the Rakata, a ruthless empire led by the dark side, invades the galaxy. Their enslaved, Force-sensitive hounds fuel their conquest, using the dark side to power their terrifying technology. Their presence marks the beginning of a war that will reshape the galaxy forever. Raised by legendary masters, he had always been proud and bold, often showing off his experiments with Force lightning to a group of girls. But his arrogance led to a mishap when he saw a vision of Zesh, causing him to almost kill himself with the very lightning he boasted about. His grandparents, stern as ever, lectured him on the dangers of using such power, reminding him of their species' natural inclination toward the dark side. Meanwhile, on the moon of Bogan, Dean Locke remained trapped in his own darkness, unaware that the Force was pulling others toward him. The 3 Jedi journeyers followed this Force trail, converging in a valley where a ship crash-landed, and from it emerged the terrifying Zesh. His mere presence, soaked in dark-side energy, caused a violent Force storm to rage across Tython. With ease, Zesh obliterated their efforts, cutting through their Force-imbued blades and reflecting their attacks back at them. It was only after a grueling battle, using their numbers to overwhelm him, that they managed to disarm him of his weapon. Zesh fled into the Abyss, a perilous place filled with acid pools and deadly creatures. The Jedi journeyers, now joined by more powerful Jedi, ventured into the Abyss after him. There, Zesh faced the ghosts of those he had murdered, haunted by his own actions as the dark side continued to consume him. Seos, raised by legendary masters, had always struggled with pride and arrogance. His constant showcasing of Force lightning to impress others led him into a dangerous situation when he had a vision of Zesh, throwing him into a reckless mistake that nearly cost him his life. His grandparents, strict and wise, intervened, reminding him of his species' natural pull toward the dark side and warning him about the dangers of arrogance. Meanwhile, Zesh, whose dark presence was so overwhelming, caused a catastrophic storm on Tython upon his arrival, slaughtering everyone aboard a crashed ship. As Zesh effortlessly overpowered the Jedi journeyers with his ancient Force saber, the battle seemed almost lost. But through their teamwork, they managed to defeat him, disarming him of his weapon. Zesh, however, fled into the dangerous Abyss, a treacherous, acid-filled chasm filled with fierce creatures. The Jedi journeyers, undeterred, pursued him, followed by a group of powerful Jedi masters, including Master Quang Jang. As Zesh ventured deeper into the Abyss, he was haunted by the ghosts of those he had killed, a painful reminder of the darkness consuming him. Zesh, a fierce Force hound, had been the one who sabotaged the ship upon arrival, slaughtering everyone aboard, including his own master. But when the concussion injuries he sustained left him unable to remember the reasons behind his actions, he found himself in a new fight for survival. Struggling against Tion's native creatures, Zesh battled predators that could absorb his Force abilities. His greatest challenge came when he faced a massive creature from Tion, a Sorrow, capable of breathing Force lightning. Without his weapon, the Force saber, Zesh was almost at the creature's mercy. But then Sheyoda, Seos Wrath, and Tasha Rio arrived, distracting the creature with rocks and buying Zesh some time. Despite being unarmed, they were powerless against the worm. Zesh, on the other hand, still had his weapon but couldn't figure out how to activate it. The saber required channeling the dark side of the Force to ignite, and Zesh convinced Shay to return it to him, claiming he alone could use it. But as soon as he had it, Zesh abandoned the Jedi and chose to watch, waiting to see how they would respond to the threat. Being a Hound of Rada, Zesh only knew one thing: to show no mercy and to call out weakness. He was stunned when he saw the Jedi defend each other. As the worm brought Tasha down, Zesh expected Shay to abandon them, just as he would have, but instead, he saw her purge all fear, glow with inner light, and protect her fallen companions. For the first time, Zesh was moved by something greater than the strength he had always worshipped. The battle rages on as the superior Jedi, long in pursuit, finally arrives, just as the Rangers finish off the worm. Master Quang Jang unites his mind with other Jedi around Tython, attempting to restore balance and end the storm. But then, the shocking truth surfaces. Zesh is the storm's source, feeding off its darkness, and the darkness feeds off him. The Jedi try to convince the Hound to stand down, but he refuses to surrender until his last breath. With the storm under his control, he even strikes at the Jedi with a bolt of lightning. Shay, fearing her master's death, attacks in fury, determined to defeat Zesh, but as the fight progresses, Zesh, weakened from his injuries, accepts his fate. Before collapsing, he requests that, should they eat his body, they honor his heart, for it was the rotten way of his kind. This strange request shocks Shay out of her rage, and she lowers her saber, explaining that it's not the Jedi way. Zesh, confused, slips into unconsciousness. The Jedi then take him to the Temple of Healing, where Zesh learns of their ways: no murder, only healing. He's stunned, especially when he learns what a healer is. Tasha Rhea visits him, uncovering not only the horrors of his past, but also the role of the Force Hounds in service to their masters, which horrifies her. Arriving at the hospital, the decision was made to exile Zesh to Bogan, preventing him from throwing Tython off balance again. Hawk Rio, who had once been exiled himself, advised the Hound to meditate on Ashla to find balance and eventually return. Zesh, however, pointed out that their understanding of the Force was drastically different from his, as he was only familiar with the ways of darkness. Upon reaching Bogan's moon, Dean Locke sensed Zesh's arrival and realized his vision was unfolding. 2 months later, the Jay are studying the Force Hound's weapon, trying to understand its functions. It was indestructible, immune to both extreme heat and cold, and lacked a power switch, leaving them baffled about its purpose. Rio, having spent time on Bogan, ignited the weapon and discovered that using it required shifting one's internal balance to channel the dark side. However, maintaining the blade pulled the wielder deeper into darkness. Despite its power, it was a dangerous tool. Master Mad Dog allowed Hawk to experiment with it further. Meanwhile, Master K2 sought guidance from Rajavari, who chastised him for ignoring the visions of the journeyman, just as the Council had disregarded Dean's prize. K2 defended the Council's reluctance to act on mere glimpses, but Rajavari insisted that glimpses of the Force must always be followed, forcing K2 to face the truth about the Council's failure. In the face of an undeniable truth, the wielder of knowledge must confront the terrifying reality that they are not alone in the galaxy, and the punishment dealt to those imprisoned has been for naught. Master Rajavari urges K2 to uncover the mystery behind Zesh and his hidden knowledge. Meanwhile, on the desolate world of Bogan, Dean Locke meets Zesh, learning that this figure is not only a part of his vision but holds the key to creating the fabled Sword of Fire. Dean Locke believes that if they can get Zesh to forge the weapon, it will prove his visions true to the Masters. Together, they escape Bogan, repairing an old ship with Zesh's lightning, and head to the planet of Krev Koer for a crystal, then to Nox for construction materials. However, their escape doesn't go unnoticed. A team of Jedi, including the determined Shiota Hawk, follows their trail, tracking down evidence of Locke's intent to create the Force Saber. A confrontation looms as Hawk and his team engage Zesh and Locke in a desperate attempt to stop their dangerous plan. The battle takes a brutal turn as one of the Rangers succumbs to Dean's mind manipulation, believing she's on fire. Dean swiftly defeats the remaining two in sword combat, with Zesh Sio sacrificing himself to save one of them, falling into a deep pit. Against all odds, he survives the fall, nursed back to health by the unlikeliest of allies, Trill, the forced Hound of Scalus, who had been ordered to follow Zesh on the planet KNX. Dean Locke and Zesh infiltrate a manufacturing facility, where Locke uses his mind tricks to subdue the owner, while Zesh, with his alchemy, forges new weapons for both of them. Using crystals from the world and the materials found in the machinery of KNX, they create swords of frozen fire. Zesh, once taught that this weapon symbolized a slave's burden, now sees it as a tool of power, as Locke views it a weapon freed from its shackles, now destined for greater things. With this new weapon, Locke believes it will convince the Jedi to follow his path. He ominously states that it will take an army, and he knows where to find one. He assembles an inner circle of Queen Hadia's top generals and lieutenants from the Despot War, all exiled on KNX, convincing them to join him. This time, not to destroy the Jedi, but to save them from themselves and prepare them for a coming dark army. But trailing behind them is the other half of the Jedi strike team, Shayota, Hawk Rio, and Rory Fenn, splitting the forces as both sides continue to vie for control of the galaxy's fate. Hawk Rio, in a desperate bid to escape his captors, corners Dean on the edge of a bridge where the two ignite their blades, engaging in a fierce duel. While this moment marks the first lightsaber duel within the Jedi Order, it's a fleeting one as Hawk soon realizes that the man before him is only an illusion. The real Dean has already made his escape. Meanwhile, Shay, fueled by rage and believing that Zesh has killed Seos, confronts him. Despite Zesh's attempts to hold back, warning her to walk away, their duel is abruptly interrupted by a giant Dianoga that drags Shay into the dark waters below. Against his better judgment, Zesh dives in to save her. Seos, proving he's still alive, makes contact with Hawk Rio, revealing Dean's plan and prompting Hawk to head to Shikwa, where old Despot sympathizers remain. There, Zesh and Dean plan to recruit more for their army. Seos and Trill, having concealed their true identities, infiltrate Shikwa to find the two Darksiders. The ultimate showdown unfolds. Hawk Rio and Dean face off in a brutal duel while Zesh and Seos clash once again. This time, the Sith pureblood is outmatched, as Zesh, a Force Hound, is far more skilled and powerful. Shay, now free from Dean's trance, convinces Zesh that he's being used. In a pivotal moment, Zesh turns against Dean, who attempts to manipulate his mind as he has done to others. But to his shock, he discovers that Zesh's mind is not so easily controlled. In the shadows of Tython, a mysterious force stirs. While the darkness of a dark Jedi crushes the spirit of his foes, Tasha Rio ventures on a quest for truth. On Tython, she uncovers an ancient holocron, not of Jedi origin, but created by a long-lost species known as the Qua. From it, she learns of the Infinity Gate's powerful portals that could transport beings across the galaxy. The Qua had used these gates to connect with other species, sharing knowledge and cultivating relationships. However, their discovery of the Rakata, an evil race driven by hunger for power, brought disaster. The Rakata twisted the Qua's gifts of technology into weapons of mass destruction, leading to the formation of the Infinite Empire. As the Qua fought back, destroying many gates to prevent their misuse, one gate remained hidden, buried deep on Tython. Now, a Rakata named Scalus seeks this last gateway, aiming to reverse a strange affliction that's causing the Rakata to lose their connection to the Force. The dark tides are rising once more, and Tasha's journey to uncover the secrets of the past may be the galaxy's last hope. After receiving critical information from their ally, K2 immediately ordered preparations for battle. There would be no more dying. Dean Locke's grim vision was beginning to unfold. 1 year passed, and during this time, the Infinite Empire launched its invasion of the Tyos system. They struck first at the outpost of Fury's Gate, capturing the gas giants Oi and Ma along with their moons. Their march across the system continued until they faced a fierce resistance on Tython, where the Jedi managed to repel their initial assault. The Rakata were forced to retreat to Skag Gora. Wherever the Rakata attacked, they enslaved the people or left only devastation in their wake. In response, the Jedi made the bold decision to mass-produce Force sabers, giving every member of their order this powerful weapon. It was the only hope they had against the Rakata, even though wielding it meant risking their connection to the dark side. With Zesh's help, the Jedi learned to use these new weapons, and shockingly, Master Rajivari emerged from exile to once again take his place as a general. Now leading the united forces of the Jedi and the remaining free worlds, Rajavari's expertise was crucial. However, the Jedi's greatest asset was the Seers, those who could interpret dreams and visions to predict enemy movements. Among them was Tasha Rio, a Jedi Ranger, whose newfound powers played a pivotal role in guiding the Jedi through this dark war. The Rakata, despite their initial setbacks, continued to push forward, determined to break the Jedi's resistance. In a bold move, the invaders send their first wave, the Flesh Raiders, brutish and mutated soldiers bred solely for war, to the planet Shikwa. The Jedi, clad in newly crafted, imbued armor and mounted on their Rancor dragons, face the onslaught. Zesh, once an enemy, now fights alongside them, confronting the many Force Hounds he once betrayed. But the battle holds deeper stakes for him than he knows. Zesh's memory loss is not a simple injury, but the result of a hidden Sith manipulation transforming him into a sleeper agent without his knowledge. This revelation comes from the Praetor, revealing that his betrayal was orchestrated all along, including the crash that began his journey. Zesh had even forgotten his old rival Trill, now a Jedi undercover among the Tians. The battle rages as the Flesh Raiders, unwilling to surrender, push the Jedi to abandon their code of mercy, straying dangerously from the balance they once upheld. The violence forces them to wield the Force sabers, tools of darkness, drawing them further into shadow. After a brutal confrontation, the Jedi drive the Rakata from Shiqua, but Seos, the Sith pureblood, is disgusted by the war's brutal nature. He feels himself and his comrades being pushed beyond balance, yet he knows this war cannot end until the Rakata are destroyed. As the Jedi plan their next strike against the Infinite Empire, they face an uncertain future, one where the very essence of their order may be forever changed. Using his astral projection ability, Zesh locates their hidden base on Skag Gora, and the Jedi prepare for an impending attack. Despite their attempts to strike, Trill, who had been secretly updating Skelos on their movements, sets a trap that captures the Jedi forces, including Dean Locke and Seos. The Rakata imprison them in battery cells, harnessing their pain and hatred to power their machines. Zesh and Trill launch a rescue mission, but Trill betrays Zesh, incapacitating him when his back is turned. On the surface of Skag Gora, the Jedi battle the Flesh Raider army, slowly succumbing to the dark side as they begin to relish in killing their enemies. The whispers of the dark side grow louder. Trapped by the Rakota, Praetor Skelos tortures Zesh, making him remember that he was a plant all along, a spy meant to expose the Jedi's weaknesses to the Rakota, allowing them to enslave the Jedi. Zesh, now a Force Hound once more, reveals to Skelos that the Jedi are using seers to predict their movements. Under Skelos' orders, Zesh tortures Dean Locke, extracting the truth of his vision from long ago, including why the chasm of Tython disrupts the minds of those affected by it. Zesh, a traitor to the Jedi, unveils a hidden truth beneath the chasm, revealing the location of the Infinity Gate. In an act of brutality, Zesh blinds the seers, not just stealing their sight, but severing their connection to the Force. Yet, amidst this devastation, Tasha Rio experiences a final vision. The Rakata will invade the Temple of Anilkash. As the Jedi learn of Zesh's betrayal, they retreat to Tython to prepare for the inevitable onslaught. The Rakata arrive, sparking fierce battles in orbit, the atmosphere, and on the ground. The Jedi, now wholly consumed by the dark side, revel in bloodlust, their minds clouded with hate. Tython itself reacts violently, unleashing storms and earthquakes that fail to halt the savage fighting. The Jedi unleash terrifying alchemical beasts upon the Rakata, hoping to feast upon their forces. Seos Wrath, a Sith pureblood, succumbs to his hatred and leads a slave revolt, joining the battle on Tython. The very Force cries out in agony as Zesh and Skalnash drag Dean Locke into the chasm, intent on unlocking the Infinity Gate using the forbidden knowledge of the Rakata. Praetor breaks through the wall that drives the sensitives to madness, abandoning Dean Locke to his fate while he and the Hound venture inside. Just as Dean frees himself from his chains, he faces off against a horde of Flesh Raiders, wielding 2 stolen Force sabers. Unyielding, he continues the fight alongside Shay, both of them leaping into the chasm to thwart the Rotten Overlord's plan and end Zash. On the surface, Seos faces Trill in a fierce battle, ultimately defeating her. As Trill unleashes a torrent of Force lightning, Seos is pushed to the brink, his rage overwhelming him. But Master Kuang Jang's call to remember his true self pulls him from the edge of darkness, and Seos redirects his lightning skyward, sparing Trill. His choice shows that even the Sith bloodline can conquer its dark nature when one listens to the light. However, the balance that the Jedi have fought to maintain is rapidly unraveling. Meanwhile, in the depths of the chasm, Dean and Shay face Zesh and Praetor. Dean battles the Rotten Overlord with his Mind Twist ability, only to be engulfed by the savage darkness within Zesh's mind. Overcome by screams of the consumed, Dean is stabbed, and as Praetor activates the Infinity Gate, he moves closer to ultimate power. As the battle rages on, Shay faces off against the man who was once her lover, determined to remind him of the truth. Despite the manipulation of his mind by the Rakata, she knows he remembers the love he once knew and the light he had tasted. Zesh, caught between his past as a slave and his newfound freedom, is torn by pain and regret. He recalls the death he once caused, and though he doesn't see himself as the man Shay believes him to be, his world shatters when Kota forgives him, only to be struck down by force lightning from Skal Nas. In that moment, Skal Nas screams that love is a lie and that power is all that matters, forcing Zesh into a dark fury that propels him to rebel against his oppressive masters. Meanwhile, Tasha Rio, blinded by the Force, continues her mission to restore balance to Tython. The gatekeeper of the Qua Holocron reveals a failsafe that requires the sacrifice of a G-Seer and the use of the Tho Yor. Despite her blindness, the gatekeeper assures her that the Force still flows through her. Accepting her destiny, Tasha enters a meditative state, allowing her essence to be transferred into the Tho Yor, floating above the temple of Anil Kes. In her final moments, her sight is restored, revealing the true purpose behind the creation of the Tho Yor and the brilliant energy it emits. The battle in the chasm was fierce, but Zesh, with a well-timed strike, delivered a final blow to the Overlord, ending the Pror's reign and sealing the fate of the Infinity Gate. The explosion that followed was inevitable, but luckily, Zesh, Shayota, and Deanlock managed to escape in time, leaving the gate's destruction behind. With this, the chapter closed. But the story wasn't over. In the aftermath, the Infinite Empire crumbled, and the galaxy saw the dawn of hyperspace travel as civilizations reverse-engineered ancient technologies. While Zesh, now known as Ta, found peace among the Jedi, discovering Ashla's teachings on Tython, Shayota continued to find his path, free from the chains of the past. But not everyone found closure. Dean Locke, wary of the lingering threat of the Flesh Raiders and the possible return of the Rakata, refused to relinquish his Force Saber. Determined to stay on the dark path, he gathered followers from the liberated slaves and set off to carve his own destiny, breaking away from the Jedi Council's ideals. The galaxy, though changing, was far from peaceful. In a twist of fate, we now shift to a different part of the galaxy, following a G-Ranger named Lori Brock. She had been away for a long time, rarely returning to her homeworld, and had not participated in the Great War against the Swarms of Darkness. However, a new cult had arisen in the Tyos system with a leader who opposed the G-Way her own brother Dai. Born without the Force's talent, Dai had failed his trials and felt abandoned by his family. Now, years later, he had re-emerged, determined to create a rift into hyperspace using dark matter, risking a cataclysmic disaster that would engulf the entire system. Lori, tasked with stopping him, struggled with the painful truth. The brother she thought was dead was now her enemy. As she journeyed across Tyos to unravel his dark plans, she learned that Dai's goal was to tear open a gateway into hyperspace to escape and exact revenge on those who had abandoned him. Realizing the only way to prevent the catastrophe was to end his life, Lori made the agonizing choice to kill him. However, upon her return to Tython, she found no peace, only the lingering corruption of the dark side that had tainted her home. The balance of the Jedi Order was shattered after the tragic death of one of their own, leaving an irreversible impact that would shape the galaxy for the years to come. What followed was a series of wars that ravaged the galaxy, including the short yet devastating Despot Wars and the invasion of Tyos. These conflicts would only mark the beginning of something far darker. The Force Wars, as they came to be known, were sparked by the once heroic figure who had fallen into the depths of the dark side. He and his followers, calling themselves the Bogan Jedi, sought to upend the ways of the Jedi and usher in a new era. In response, the remaining Jedi turned to the light, calling themselves the Ashla G, wielding new weapons to fight against their corrupted counterparts. As the war raged on, history became blurred, and the creation of the first true lightsaber marked a turning point in the struggle between light and dark. The battle for balance would define the fate of the galaxy for centuries to come. The first blade, a type of proto-saber, contained an internal power cell, making it revolutionary and not reliant on the dark side to activate. It was an advanced creation, tens of millennia ahead of its time, yet its creator, recognizing the power it held, hid it away, awaiting a worthy successor to discover it. During the Force Wars, the Ashla Jedi, who had almost entirely embraced the light, began to forget the balance that had once been central to their existence. Believing that light alone could counteract the dark, they reformed into the Holy Order of the Jedi Knights, officially becoming the Jedi Master Council, tasked with defending against the dark side. This marked the beginning of the First High Council. After the death of Dean Locke, it seemed peace was within reach, but Rajvari, increasingly drawn to the dark side, grew resentful of the Jedi's complete devotion to the light. He believed the Order needed a complete overhaul, starting with its destruction. Leading a faction of Jedi students, he introduced principles that contradicted the traditional Jedi virtues, including a survivalist mentality and a rejection of sacrifice as foolishness, revealing Rajavari's trauma from the previous wars and his deepening fall to dark. The story of Master Rajavari and his betrayal unfolds in the midst of the Force Wars, where his actions set in motion a devastating conflict. As a once revered figure within the Jedi, Rajavari's journey into darkness was marked by his controversial belief in the destructive power of mercy. Witnessing the chaos unleashed by such compassion during the war, Rajavari sought to create a legacy that would endure beyond his fall. He established the Fountain of Rajavari, a hidden repository of forbidden knowledge, and inscribed the location of this sanctuary into the First Blade's hilt, leaving a trail for future seekers to uncover. His descent into darkness continued as he aligned with the dark side forces, eventually leading a final stand at the Temple of Kauth. In a battle that lasted for nearly a decade, Rajavari and his followers fought until their last breath, refusing to surrender. His eventual death in battle was not the end. However, his powerful spirit, unwilling to fully join the Force, lingered on as a Force ghost within the hidden fountain of Rajavari, waiting for the day a worthy heir would rise to claim his legacy. In the midst of a terrible war, a prophecy whispered of a worthy disciple who would inherit the wisdom of the Jedi. The planet Tython had reached its breaking point, battered by unrelenting storms and an imbalance that consumed it. The land trembled under the weight of conflict, and soon, the inhabitants would come to regret that the worst of their fears was not the lightning or earthquakes, but the cataclysm that would tear the planet apart. The destruction obliterated its biosphere, rendering Tython uninhabitable. With few Jedi left, they fled from their ancestral home, exiled and adrift. Their once sacred duty to protect the planets they loved now lay in ruins, leaving them no place to call home. Using their advanced hyperdrive technology, they left the Deep Core, heading to the rim of the galaxy, marking the end of a tragic era. As they wandered in search of a new purpose, the balance of the Force seemed to slip further from their grasp. Yet, this was not due to arrogance or negligence, as the Sith would later claim. The Jedi had fallen prey to the darkness, manipulated by the dark side that had ravaged them. Anger, hatred, and desperation had driven them to make unimaginable choices, creating monstrous creatures and bombing innocent cities. The dark side's influence turned one of their greatest into a believer in the survival of the fittest, leading the Jedi down a path that would forever change their fate. The Jedi were not just an order, they were family, bound together through a deep, spiritual connection in the Force. But now, the very thing that had united them seemed to slip beyond their reach. Tython, once a symbol of unity, now lay in ruins. The dark side had torn through it, leaving only destruction and loss. The people, stained by the blood of their own kin, were forever haunted by their past actions, driven by the curse of the dark side. Once, they had fought desperately to protect this sacred land, their only home. But now, in this day of sorrow, the very idea of balance seemed like a cruel jest. The Jedi Order, once committed to balance, found no peace in the darkness, but they had a new resolve. They chose Ashla, the peaceful, life-giving force, dedicating themselves to protecting the innocent, their new path marked by a new code. There is no emotion, there is peace. They would meditate on this principle to guide every action, reminding them to avoid recklessness. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge, for fear born of ignorance led only to darkness. There is no passion, there is serenity. A call to act with composure, focusing on the mission above all. There is no chaos, there is harmony. For the Jedi saw the Force unifying all life, weaving a beautiful and purposeful tapestry. There is no death, there is the Force. For they knew that life was a fleeting part of a greater energy that would persist beyond the end. This new code was their shield, their compass, as they moved forward to protect the galaxy from the shadows of the past. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, beings played roles that surpassed ordinary understanding. For 730 years, the Jedi had sailed among the stars, following a code passed down through generations. The story of Tython gradually faded into history, but in 2553, the Jedi discovered a new world in wild space, similar to Tython, rich in the Force, yet free from the violent storms of old. Originally known as IDU, the world was transformed under the guidance of the Jedi and came to be called Ossus. The Jedi brought many traditions from Tython, including the forge for their metal blades, a symbol of their heritage. Although they had lost the first blade on Tython, they kept alive the memory of the ancient sabers. For millennia, they worked tirelessly to recreate the technology, eventually giving rise to the iconic lightsaber. But for now, their swords remained reminders of their origin. On Ossus, they built an academy and a magnificent library that housed the knowledge saved from Tython, ensuring that nothing was lost in their travels. This library grew to be the greatest repository of wisdom in the galaxy. The Jedi made contact with other worlds, including Kamas, home to the Kamasi species. Known for their diplomacy and wisdom, the Kamasi offered the Jedi friendship and a new perspective on conflict resolution. Thus, the Jedi's journey continued, preserving peace and knowledge as they faced the trials of their destiny. In the distant past, the galaxy was torn apart by wars, but amidst the chaos, the Jedi emerged as legendary diplomats who preferred words to weapons. It was during this time that the Jedi first encountered the core worlds, where they witnessed the devastation caused by a warlord named Minus, whose villainy would leave a lasting impact. The Jedi, recognizing the evil in his ways, chose to intervene, and their involvement marked one of their first significant interactions with the core. This led to the formation of the Galactic Republic, an alliance that included key planets such as Coruscant, Corellia, and Alderaan. Despite their role in the war, the Jedi remained hesitant to fully engage with established governments, especially after their betrayal by the Tho system. However, the year 24,953 BBY marked a turning point with an era of exploration and expansion. Scouts from Duro discovered a new hyperspace route connecting Coruscant to Ois, bringing the Jedi Order into official contact with the Republic. Grandmaster Tyre, after seeing the potential of this new system, returned to Ois with a sense of hope. For weeks, the Jedi and Republic leaders debated and meditated, seeking a path that would lead to a peaceful and unified future for the galaxy. In the beginning, the Jedi were simply beings seeking answers about the life-giving energy that surrounded them. Through the guidance of a living planet and 2 moons, they discovered a delicate balance between light and dark. From humble scholars, they evolved into protectors of peace in a small region of the galaxy. As time passed, wars, devastation, and corruption led them to abandon their pursuit of balance, consumed by fear and the horrors created by the dark side. They vowed to prevent such destruction, dedicating themselves to ensuring peace for the galaxy. Under the Republic's banner, they became guardians, not perfect, but deeply fascinating due to their flaws. The Jedi always sought to protect life's sanctity even when it meant sacrificing their own, their homes, and their friends. In the dawn of the Jedi, a story unfolds, a tale of heroism and sacrifice. The beginning of an era where light, symbolized by the Jedi, begins to shine across the galaxy. It all starts with a gathering of species, brought together by the mysterious starships, the Tho Yor, to the ancient world of Tython. The Jedi Order is born, a group that seeks balance between the light and the dark, learning the ways of the Force across 9 temples. Their journey is filled with struggle, both internal and external, as wars, rage, and corruption seeps in. The Rakata Empire's invasion marks a pivotal moment, leading to the creation of the Force Sabers and the rise of the first true Dark Jedi. Through trials, betrayal, and devastation, the Jedi's path eventually leads them to embrace only the light, creating the Jedi Order that would serve as the peacekeepers of the Republic. This marks the true birth of the Jedi, a legacy that will echo through the galaxy for millennia, shining forever as the beacon of hope.